So as I get started, my slides are not going to have Taz support on it, so I've got to walk to Atlanta this afternoon, I guess, according to Scott. And for my friend John, who wasn't here yesterday, should have come early, dude. I mean, come on, get with the program. You're so unique, too. You're like the only one who missed it. So we're going to do a lot of inside jokes that you won't get, but just laugh when everyone else is laughing, all right? That'll be great. Okay. So as Carlos said, I'm a chief storyteller at IBM. And what that just means is, and people ask me, so how do you get to be a chief storyteller? I'm actually in sales. I'm actually, like many of you, we have things that we would like for other people to purchase. But I'm one that takes the approach of, it's about getting people to believe something. It's not about getting them to buy something. So if you go in with the idea that I want you to believe something, which is one of the reasons why I was just floored by Barton's talk yesterday, because it wasn't about these things. It was about, this is what we believe. And because we believe these things, this is what we're doing. And I thought that was impressive. So this morning, with the time I have, what I'd like to do is I'm going to hopefully challenge you a little bit. This is not going to be about the product and so forth. It's going to be more about you and your business and the way you look at things and maybe the way you actually approach the way you do business. So this is about the what ifs of the world, okay? So we're going to ask a few questions. What if what you know is in your way? That's an interesting, I mean, we think knowledge is important, and knowledge is something that's important, right? But Mark Twain actually said, it's not the things that you don't know that's going to kill you, it's the things that you know for sure that ain't so. And a lot of us think we know our customers, and we know our business, and we know our environment, and we know our competitors, and we know all these things. And if we're not careful, those are the things that are going to be our downfall, okay? I'm not going to show people getting their heads drilled into. Again, sorry, Martin. It was a little early after breakfast yesterday, but I'll give that to you, okay? But the idea is that our brains are so complex, and it's just a marvelous thing what we can do with them. But often, the way we think and the way we think is different. I mean, most of you will probably think, okay, so if I have a customer and they're trying to make a decision, and if say you're trying to make a decision, and most of you think, well, look, if I'm faced with the decision, I'm going to line up the facts, I'm going to look at the arguments, I'm going to weigh the pros and the cons and whatever, and then I'm going to make a decision. And that could be further from the truth, okay? We as humans, one of the reasons we've survived is because we're very good at making decisions quickly based on what we know and what we believe and how we've experienced things. So we make decisions with our heart, and we make them very quickly. And then we look for data elements or facts that back up our decision because our brain likes to be right. And so what you do is you begin looking for the elements that say, this proves what I'm saying, this proves what I'm saying, this proves what I'm saying. And by the way, if the data's not there, it's been shown that you'll make it up, okay? My wife accuses me of that all the time. So the point is, we will make up stuff. Now, if you don't believe that's true, let's do an example. How many of you have kids that are of driving age or getting out of the house? Some of you. You probably have experienced this, okay? I've got 3 kids. They're out on their own payroll, thank the Lord. But, you know, there's a time. Okay, so now my son, Lewis, there's 4 Lewises, by the way, but Lewis, you know, I tell him, I say, son, okay, so you need to be in by 11 o'clock. Okay, and he said, Dad, can I go out? Yes, you can. Take the car, but you got to be in by 11 o'clock. So Lewis grabs the keys. He runs out the door, goes off. Wife and I are sitting around 10:30, okay? Lewis isn't home yet. 10:45, still not home. 10:55, not quite yet. 10:57, the car drives up, he walks in. 10:58, drops the keys in the cabinet, starts to run up the stairs. And what do I say? Cutting a little close, aren't you? Has Lewis done anything wrong? No, he's on time. He's done everything right. But I've already made the mental decision that he's going to be late. He's just that kind of kid, right? And I'm looking for data points that's proving that he's not going to be there. And it actually disturbed me when he got home. It's like, gee, 2 minutes and I would have had him. It's like, what am I doing? It's like, the point is what we know may not be the exact same thing. Now, here's a question. I've had the pleasure of spending time with you, some of you yesterday. Just not that some of you were not pleasurable, but I had time to spend with, that sounded bad, with sitting over lunch and asking questions and stuff because I'm curious about what it is you do. Here's a question I'd like for you to ask yourself. What business are you in? Okay, what business are you in? Just tell me.
Mitigating risk.
What's that? Mitigating risk, okay? Anyone else? Accuracy. I'm in the business of accuracy, okay? Service, okay? Compliance, protection. We help people sleep. Now I want you to know that those kind of things, you go, huh, that's interesting. I want you to think about the business you're in. What is it you really do, okay? Because the business you're in, you may form opinions. If we're accuracy, we're compliance. Not that those are bad things, but it may kind of box you in. IBM's been in the business of technology for a long time, 107 years, I think, or so now. Back in the 40s, our founder, Thomas Watson, is reported to have said this: I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers. Not one of his proudest moments, okay? But I want you to know that's in the 40s. What you should know, though, is see that big thing that they're loading on that truck? That's a 5 megabyte disk drive. I mean, how many computers are people going to buy if that's a 5 megabyte disk drive, right? So from what he knew at the time, he could not envision why we would have more than 5 computers. Why would there be so many companies that could possibly do this? Don't let what you know today actually cause you to have concern about, not be able to look in what's coming tomorrow. So the second point that we need to ask ourselves, what if you need to actually think differently? What if the way you're thinking right now, the process you're going through when you're talking to sales, to your sales contacts or to your customers, or when you're dealing with support, thinking is actually pretty hard work. I love this quote from Ford. There's also a quote from Watson, again, another quote that he said that all the world's problems could be easily solved if men were only willing to think. And often that's where the think came from for the IBM brand. You see a lot of think pads and think stuff. That's where that think actually came from. What people don't do is there's another part of that quote that's not often given. He finishes it by saying, but we as men, we resort to all sorts of devices not to think because thinking is such hard work. Thinking differently is difficult. I love just studying human behavior and looking at work and talent and how we waste our time. And for instance, email. We do email. Years ago, I used to ask this question: how often do you check your email? And people would sheepishly go, like 8 times a day? It's like they were embarrassed, 8 times a day. Now I ask them, how often do you check your email? It's like all the time. You know why we check email so often? It doesn't require us to think. You just look at email. It's just a thing you do, right? And you will look at email and you will do those kind of things instead of thinking because thinking's hard. So I'm going to challenge you to do some thinking, okay? We have some really smart people in our biomedical place at IBM. And they've determined a way to put a third eyeball on your body. Don't tweet this. This is just a story, okay? But it's a story, okay? But I'm in the marketing group, so I'm trying to figure out, when we go to market with this, we need to kind of come up with some ideas. So tell me, if you had a third eyeball, where would you put that on your body? Back of your head. Back of your head is the number one answer among adults. What's the number one answer among kids? Anyone? What's that? The hand. The hand or the finger, the end of the finger. I heard some people go, imagine if it's on your hand or the end of your finger, We ask kids, so tell me about that. Why is that? So I can look over the crowd. I can look around the corner at night to see if mom's still watching so I can get out of bed, I had one kid say, I could look under the bed to see if the monster's there, if it was there. I was on a flight the other day, and I could not get the plug to fit in under the seat. Have y'all ever tried to plug in something and it's like underneath you and you can't get the orientation, you have no idea what it's like? It would have been so handy just to look down there and see that. What I ended up doing was taking my phone and reaching down there and taking a picture, and then looking at the picture and going, oh, that's it, which freaked the guy out next to me because he's sleeping. All of a sudden he sees this flash and he's like, what's going on? The idea is we need to sometimes think differently because we're going to market or we're going and selling this idea that eyeballs on the back of their heads, that's what we need to do. We need to do it this way. And your competitor's going to come along and go, no, we got a better idea. By the way, you can see behind you. Why do you think we as adults too say back of our head? Why is that?
Because we feel like it's our blind spot.
It's our blind spot. We tell our kids, I have eyes on the back of my head, right? And I got your back. And all these we've grown into that. We've grown out of the idea of exploring and being creative. We're now more fear concerned. So sometimes you get in a position in a marketplace and in a job and in an environment where you go, I'm really concerned about my blind spot. I'm really concerned about that. And when really you should be thinking about what are the other things I should be doing. Maybe the end of the finger kind of a product is something I need to be involved with. So here's a question for you. How would a 5-year-old describe the value of what you do? Not what you do, but the value of what you do. I'll give you a second to think about that if somebody comes up with an idea. I'll let you know, Seth Godin has a statement. He said, people are no longer buying goods and services. They're buying stories, relations, and magic. And so all my grandkids, they all know that Papa, what does Papa do? Papa makes magic. That's what Papa does. So that's what I do. What is it you do? How would a 5-year-old describe the value of what you do?
Keep me safe from monsters.
Keep me safe from monsters. That's actually incredibly creative, all right? Anyone else? If you were to, anybody have like small I saw a little kid today in breakfast. I don't know who brought the little kid, but I wish he was here. How would you explain to a kid what you do? Anyone? It's tough to think that way. But you need to begin to think about, how would I describe what I do? I will tell you that in my experience with you, I've asked you, so what is it you do? What do you think the answer is I get? What did I get this morning from you? This morning, when I said, what is it you do? You told me? I'm a CRA. I'm a CRA. I'm a CRA. I said there's a lot of that going around, remember? Because that's what all you were telling me. What is it you do? What is the value of what you do? You need to begin to think about that. And here's a good way you might be able to do this. I don't know how many are familiar with this gentleman, Simon Sinek, and his golden circle. But if you're not familiar with it, I'll try to do some high level, but you can go Google him, look at the videos, or buy the book even. It's great. But his concept is there's these circles. What is it you do? How do you do it? And why do you do it? And most of us, when we're pitching something to someone, we're going from the outside in. And I'll use IBM as an example, okay? What is it we do? Well, we build computers and, enterprise software systems. How do we do that? Well, we use scalable software and open architecture and, secure systems. Why do we do it? Because we want you to buy some, right? And then Sinek actually in his talk, he mentions Apple as an example. So I'll just go ahead and use the Apple example. He says, so Apple starts in the middle. Why? We believe in challenging the status quo. Those are belief statements. What you heard yesterday from Barton was belief statements. This is what we believe. This is why we do what we do. Then you go, so if we believe this, Apple says, we believe in challenging the status quo. How do we do that? We do that by building products that are designed and fun and engaging and whatever. What is it we do? Well, we actually build computers. You want to buy one? We build MP3 players. You want to buy one? We build, phones. You want to buy one? His point is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So when you're presenting your use case or your value proposition to the people that you're trying to sell to, start with why. Okay? Because, again, Sinek says that we're getting back into the brain. You've got me in the brain, Barton. Sorry. The brain actually has the neocortex and the limbic part of the brain. The neocortex part of the brain is the part of the brain that handles numbers and figures and can handle speech, and that does the what. So you show somebody a spreadsheet, they can look at the spreadsheet, they can see the data, they understand all of it. That's that part. They understand that. The part in the middle, the how and the why part specifically is the limbic part of the brain, which is the old lizard brain, right? That one controls behavior. And if you don't get to the behavior part, sometimes you'll pitch your idea or you'll pitch your solution to someone, and they'll look at you and go, I understand it, but I'm not buying it. And you go, why? And they can't even tell you why, because that part of the brain doesn't even know how to speak. It's like they can't even tell you why. It's just you haven't sold me on this. Jeff Gitomer does a sales talk, or does books, a Little Red Book of Selling and others, and I know the man for quite some time. He has a great saying. He said, if you pull on the heart, the wallet will pop out. Okay, I'm getting really sorry for you right now. I'm getting very, very sales specific. But he said, we make decisions with our heart. We justify it with our mind, like I told you earlier. You pull on the heart and the wallet will pop out. If you don't believe that, how many of you have small children? How many deals do they close? Every one of them, right? Because they just know, especially the little girls. I have this little granddaughter that just, she just can just reach into my heart and checkbooks fly out, So what if you need to ask better questions? The third thing you need to be thinking about. You're in the business of actually giving people data and taking data and running, and they ask questions. What is this person like? What's their background? Whatever. And we know that we often look for the answers. We're looking for answers. But you in your business and you in even your personal life, think about the questions that you're asking. Today, it's pretty easy to get the answers. I know that what you do is hard, but answers are there. But what kind of questions are you asking? What kind of questions could you ask? There's an idea that Voltaire said, judge a man by his questions, not by his answers. I just did a curriculum for a small school, and it was for high school students, it was all about how do you ask better questions. And it wasn't about how do you create a Google search string, But how do you go about being curious so that you actually get better answers if you ask good questions? Guy Kawasaki, the gentleman is just a brilliant, he was an Apple evangelist actually. And so I have to give credit to him because this is actually his story that I use. But some time ago, there was ice harvesters. Some of you said you had kids. You've obviously seen Frozen, right? The ice it's like I can sing the songs for you, but I'm not going to. So ice harvesting. People go out to these lakes, cold temperatures, carve out these ice, put them on sleds, sled them into town, sell them to people for ice. We call that ice 1.0. Okay? Along came ice 2.0, which is factories. So they built these ice houses. They said, you know what, we can actually have refrigeration units. They're very, very huge, very large, but we can put them in these towns in places where there's not necessarily even cold. So even in warmer weather, we can provide ice. And then what we'll do is we'll then transport that ice to the different stores and homes and so forth from these ice houses. That's ice 2.0. Ice 3.0, let's put ice in an ice maker inside of a refrigerator. Okay, so now ice is being delivered through this machine. People no longer need the ice houses or the ice harvesters. The interesting part about this is, as much as we can tell, no ice harvester ever took their business and turned it into an ice house business. And no people who ran ice houses ever got into the refrigeration business. Why? Because the ice harvesters were just concerned with, I need better saws and faster sleds. And that's what they were focused on. That's what we need. We need this. Instead of thinking, what else should we be doing? I loved, again, the fact that Barton yesterday talked about how they're moving budget into research. There's things that you ask for. There's things that you want. But they may just be sharper saws and faster sleds. But maybe we should be looking at, okay, so where's the ice house going to be? Where's ice 2.0 for you? And you need to think about that yourself in your companies. Your business may be doing great now. In fact, some of you I've asked about your business, and so tell me, how's it going? It's great. It's booming. I even had one company yesterday confide to me, and they said, we haven't had a salesperson for like months, and our business is still growing. And it's from word of mouth. It's because you put forth a good product. But the idea is, what's going to take that away from you? What could possibly eclipse you? How could someone do this differently? What question were these people asking? Anyone? How do I get them to rewind the videos? That was the biggest thing for Blockbuster. If I could just get you to rewind the videos, just rewind those tapes for me, because I got this guy that just sits in the back and he rewinds tapes and I'll fine you for it. And that's what they were thinking about. They weren't thinking about what's going to take the place of tapes. These people, what business were they in? And this is back to that conversation about business. You know what business these people were in? Chemicals and film. That's what they were in the business of. And they missed the digital boom because they were in the film business. Now, what if they were in the business? What if they defined themselves as, we are in the business of capturing moments or capturing memories? When the digital camera came along, they would have looked at it and said, that's in line with what we do. And they would have adapted to it. But instead, they looked at that and said, digital cameras, that's getting rid of our film. That's getting rid of our chemicals. That's what we do. And so they were left behind. Any of you have a BlackBerry? At one time, these people had 70% of the mobile phone market. 70%. And this is an interesting question. You know what question they were asking? How do we keep the tens of millions of customers that we have happy? How do we keep them happy? And you know what question they weren't asking? How do we win the billions of customers we don't have? Because what happened was Apple and others came along and said, you can have those 10 millions or whatever. I'm going to go after the billions over here. And they eclipsed them because they just weren't asking the right question. You may be the same. You may say, look, I'm happy. I've got 10 million customers. It's awesome. But someone's going to come along that might kind of edge you out. So the questions of what kind of business are you in and how would a 5-year-old simplify things. There's also a thing called six-word novels. I don't know if any of you are familiar with six-word novels, but it was made famous by Ernest Hemingway. I love using this. Hemingway was reported that he was in a restaurant with some of his friends, some of his writer friends, and he bet them. He said, I'll bet you I can write a meaningful novel using only 6 words. And so they anteed up, and he won the bet with this novel. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. Think about those 6 words. Think about what the ideas that conjures up. Think about what that you're now imagining and thinking. I love to get into presentations and I look at people's slides and I go, how would I say all of that in 6 words? How would I take that and put that in a tweet? You need to look at what you're doing and what you're talking to people about and what you're selling and think about it in the simplest of terms. How the simplest, and that's why the 5-year-old is actually being used, because it's simple terms. Think in simple terms of what you do and the value that you give. Why are these questions actually important to you? Okay, so I'll close with this. Darwin said it's not the strongest or the most intelligent. The one who's going to survive is the one that's most adaptable to change. And if I ask anyone, do you think you live in a changing world right now? We'll all say, yeah, it's a changing world. In fact, we often think that businesses are being disrupted. It's not that businesses are being, disruption is business. That's the business we live in, is the business of disruption. But it's about changing things. Adopt. This is where we often go. So let's adopt something. Let's adopt some new software. Let's adopt a new process. Let's adopt something else. For those of you who don't know, that's a dodo. Okay. The reason the dodos, one of the reasons they believed the dodos went extinct was because when the sailors arrived on the islands, the dodos were not afraid of humans. And they were delicious. The dodos were. And they were easy to catch. So humans could walk up to them and just grab them. Next thing you know, they're eating them. And they were so easy to catch. Now, that was one reason. They also brought pigs and other things on the island, which actually caused the problem with the eggs and whatnot. But the idea was the dodos just, hey, new people coming in, welcome. Let's adopt that. Let's just be here. This isn't about adopting. This isn't about adopting new software. This isn't about adopting a new feature. This isn't about adopting something. This is about adapting. Okay, there's a big difference. Adapting is you making the change. You saying, okay, so here's where I'm at right now. Here's the business that I'm in right now. But here's the environment around me that's changing. And here's the changes that I need to be open to. Here's the changes in my open-mindedness. Here's the questions I need to be asking. Here's the things I need to do in order to adapt and survive. And although Darwin said, that strength and intelligence may not be the thing, it's the adaptability, sometimes there are some things that you can use to help you adapt, some techniques you can use. One adapting technique is just having adaptive sight. What are you seeing that no one else is seeing? You know your customers. You know your marketplace. You believe you know the environment in which you sell. Are you looking for what is that one thing? How can I possibly take that one product and add this piece of service to this or add this piece of value? How can I possibly take that and make it something that's unique, that's something totally different? How can I create a phone that doesn't have a keyboard on it? Because everyone's asking for a keyboard. I don't need a keyboard. My iPhone took my place. By the way, did you know iPhones have actually eroded the marketplace for flashlights? Really, they have. Flashlight sellers are going, our business is dying because of iPhones and phones that have cameras flashlights in them. Now, did you think Apple said, I'm going to try to erode the flashlight market by doing this? It's like, no, I'm just going to give these people a flashlight to carry around. You need to be looking for, how can I add something that's going to actually make our stuff better? And how that's going to help me survive. Being able to see what's maybe not right there right now, but you need to be able to look ahead and see things. Adaptive strength. How could you possibly be stronger? And this is back to that value add statement. This is about how can I put something together that this piece is important and this piece is important, but if I can somehow get my client or get my audience or my marketplace to understand how the value of these two things together. Again, about the integration that TazWorks is doing. It's just making things stronger. Because there's a thing that says a rope of 3 cords is not easily broken. It's like when you put more things together, you get stronger. And you look at this and say, well, how can I put some things together that actually makes not only my opportunity stronger, but also my position, my relationship, my ability to work with this customer stronger. Look for ways that you can have this adaptive strength. And last, it's all about speed too. It's about how can I be faster? How can I be faster than my competitors? I forget I don't use the saying often, but it's the idea of whether you're a gazelle or whether you're a cheetah, when you wake up, you better be running, right? The idea is you don't want to be the gazelle that's always running every day because you've got a cheetah on you. You want to be that cheetah. You want to be, how am I going to actually be faster than the people around me? How am I going to find things and find opportunities? How am I going to present in a way that's going to be meaningful to my customers? The things that I do is not just a commodity. I just won't do a background check for you. I'll do it in such a way that it's going to speed the process of you getting good talent, because good talent's not going to wait. Good talent has lots of offers. If you make them go through a 4-day process to be vetted before in that time frame, someone else can scoop them up. I'm going to help you land better talent because I can do that faster for you. You need to understand what speed aspects that you have that you can actually bring to bear to give your value, to the customer. If you're not seeing these things, if you're not stronger, if you're not faster, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Okay? I want you to remember this picture. I'm sure he's just looking out there at the ships and going, "Ooh, neat, new people." You may do the same. You may look around you. You may say, "Hey, look, there's another company that's moved in, or there's another group that's kind of doing." They don't do what we do. They're kind of like us, but they're really not us. And then before you know it, you're going the way of the dodo. So, forgive me for being blunt, but think. Take time. I actually have a door hanger at home. I picked it up when I was in Colombia, South America, Bogota. I was at a Park House hotel, and the door hanger was written in Spanish, but also had an English translation. The translation said, "Shh, don't bother me. I'm being creative right now." And I asked the hotel manager, I said, "Can I take one of your door hangers?" He said, "Yes." And I took it actually into a group of professionals I was meeting with later, some executives. And I said, "Imagine if you walked up to a cubicle of one of your people and they had this hanging out. 'Shh, don't bother me. I'm being creative.' What would you say?" And a lot of them said, "I'd say, get back to work." Okay? Those people who take that time to think, those people who take that time to actually question, those people who are looking at, how do I adapt? Again, I was asking Barton a question yesterday actually, and he said, "I need to think about that. I need to go running." What does it take for you to think? Sometimes we get so busy we just don't take time to think. We don't take time to question what we're doing because we're so successful or we're doing so well. So why would we dare question something? And then why would we even need to look to adapt? So take this time today, the rest of the day, as you sit in sessions and as you are in a marvelous place, first of all, with the TazWorks team, to ask questions, to be curious. Go to them with some ideas. If you've got some ideas, say, "Look, if we had this and this together, it would really help us sell better, or this would help us in maybe open a new marketplace." Do that, okay? Just because, Barton, excuse me, I won't speak on behalf of you, but just because Barton has put money in research doesn't mean that you can't also be his research team. It's not just, I'm sure it's not just about just taking products and saying, "I need this new feature," but what if you came to Barton sometime and said, "Look, here's an idea. Have you ever thought about doing this?" And something brand new, something he can actually get his teeth into. Barton, would you be open to them coming to you with an idea like that? Absolutely, was his answer. Okay, so take that time. Begin to think of how you could differentiate yourselves. Okay? So you guys have a great break, okay? Thanks for taking the time. And Barton, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.